morning. Welcome to the Happiness Insight. I am your MC of this Happiness Insight 2020, and my name is Jin Jae-un. I'm an investigative journalist and a documentary director. I usually film the environment of the earth. And when I think of happiness, animals feel happy, plants feel happy. They have happy expressions, and even water, when it feels happy, the expression changes. So I thought to myself, the world was meant to be happy. And the happiness is the center of the world, and whenever there is anything that's unhappy, we forget to be happy, but we come back to happiness. So our life is filled with happiness. On the way to this forum, I looked at the World Happiness Report this year, and I found that Korea ranked the 61st, and which is 7 notches down from the last year. So people feel they are not happy. So why do we feel unhappy then? And how can we make ourselves feel happy? Maybe that's why we are here. Or through YouTube. And this event is also broadcast with through the website of Happiness Insight as well as YouTube. And the theme of this year's event is From Isolation to Connection. And I hope we will be able to seek ways to be from isolation to connection. We are joined by many people, and when we feel unhappy, happiness cannot be spread. So we have all the experts on happiness from home and abroad, and I hope this event will be happy. We also have lots of heartwarming events more than before. For every number of participants joining online via the webpage and YouTube, we will donate 1,000 won to Children's Foundation. We also prepared some special presents for the online participants, so please stay with us to the end of the event. We will open the Happiness Insight 2020 with the opening video. Let's enjoy it.
recover from isolation to connection. Now it's time to invite the host and organizers. Let's listen to the welcoming remarks. First, I'd like to invite President Lee Bong-sun for the welcoming remarks. Please welcome her with a big round of applause. Ladies and gentlemen, unlike last year, the quality of this event has been improved. In the past year, we met together in person, and also we invited speakers and presenters to the sites to connect with them in person. But this year, we are meeting them online. As we meet them online, I'd like to thank all of the attendees who are joining us online. I really thank you for joining us. The Happiness Insight is celebrating its 4th anniversary as Korea has become one of the largest economies of the OECD. We have achieved economic growth, but we are still grappling with social issues. So I believe that it's time for seek social healing and social changes. Korea has become the OECD economy, but we have one of the highest suicide rate. So it's time for us to seek change. That's why I organized Happiness Insight in the first place. And over the last 4 years, we have invited lots of professionals, expertise on happiness, and philosophers, professors. So I now feel so proud and so rewarded. And this year, this coronavirus pandemic is the first global issue that all the humanity are facing. So now we have experienced isolation and disconnection this year. So that's why I selected the theme recovery from isolation to connection. That's the theme of this year's Happiness Insight. We are joined by Professor Robert Waldinger from Harvard Medical School, who studied happiness for 78 years, as our keynote speaker. And we are also joined by the former Korean ambassador to Denmark, which has the highest happiness index in the world, His Excellency Choi Jae-chul. We will listen to his views about the keys to happiness as seen through the eyes of an ambassador. And we are also joined by the brain scientist, one of the most renowned brain scientists, and the doctor on happiness, who will talk about how our brain is wired for happiness. This year, unlike the existing sessions, we have a special session where we are joined by the future generation to listen to what they think about future happiness. That's a special session for young people who will talk about happiness. And the mindfulness yoga session will be also presented later on, which was being approved by many scientific researches. A scholar once said that difficulties makes ordinary people be prepared for great challenges. We are faced with our own challenges due to the pandemic this year. But as we welcome a new year, I believe it's time to think about how we are prepared by overcoming the challenges. Let's hope for the best year next year. Thank you.
Thank you. So we are isolated with the COVID-19. So we believe the recovery from isolation is very necessary, paying a very dear lesson. We are also joined by Mr. Alok Kumar Roy for the welcoming speech. Please welcome him with a big round of applause.
오늘 한국 밖
We are joined by many people from even outside through online. So I will deliver my welcoming speech in English very short.
we have gathered here to make a humble attempt to reach for the hope that we all need in this difficult time. The pandemic will be remembered in human history for having made mankind adapt to new modes of living. No doubt it has disturbed our rhythm in life. This new way of living comes with different challenges, and at times it undermines our confidence in the things that we find familiar with. Yet, we are here today to remind ourselves that to smile and share our struggles with others is a humble birthright. A smile is the most effective vaccine to drive away the gloom. Let's make our smiles even more infectious so that they help us to better adapt to a new lifestyle, a space which the virus can find no place to survive. The yellow lights shining from the 7 bridges in Busan yesterday evening were a symbolic start to a movement that will bridge geographies, homes, and most important of all, human heart and souls. This was no doubt a momentous event, and I'm sure this will become a tradition soon. Freedom from isolation, as a theme of today's forum, is set to spark our imagination on how we could smile again. Conducting and constructing a dialogue in cyberspace is another commendable endeavor in the right direction, because no physical contact is worth making at this time and space. I thank the organizers and participants for their earnestness in making all this possible. Through Happiness Insight, Busan has provided a healthy program on a sound platform for the last 3 years. I see a future in the making here. This will inevitably win hearts and build human bridges where none existed before. Thank you all very much, and may happiness be with you always. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Loy. Thank you for your welcoming remarks. It was just yesterday we had the lighting ceremony on 7 bridges in Busan. They were all lit up in the color yellow, which represents our smile, which is the happiness color. So you must be happy when you see those yellow colors. Now it's time to welcome and begin our Happiness Insight. We have our very special guest in the US waiting for the keynote speech. Professor Robert Waldinger of Harvard Medical School. Professor Robert Waldinger. I'd like to introduce him to you. He has been studying one study for the past 80 years, from Second World War on 724 men. track them how they developed and also their descendants and their sons and daughters and their sons and daughters as well for the past almost 80 years how they developed and how are they living. I believe this is one of the most longest period of research in the world. His TED lecture has recorded 20 million hits and also in the counting. It was a short lecture, but it was a very insightful presentation on how we have to live to have a happy life. It was a very insightful lecture. We are very happy to have him with us today as a keynote speaker. Professor, are you there? Can you listen?
It's an honor to be here with you
네.
tonight. Is the sound okay? Can everyone hear me?
네, 잘 들립니다.
Yes, we can hear you very well.
Well, I'm very happy to join you at this wonderful conference on happiness from the United States. We are all facing a terrible pandemic, a global crisis, and it's a time of great uncertainty, great stress. And so this is a particularly important time to talk about the things that we know contribute to well-being and happiness.
Thank you, Professor. Your theme today is the power of human connection. Lessons from the Harvard Study of Adult Development. So we look forward to your very insightful and happy lecture. So now the floor is yours now.
So let me begin my talk. It's very good to be with you. And what I want to talk about today is what we think is the longest study of adult life and of well-being that's ever been done. As you have been hearing in these introductions, we have, for the most part, assumed that happiness was the same as economic prosperity, that gross domestic product around the world would determine who was happy and who was not. But as we heard, every year the United Nations does a World Happiness Report. And in that report, they ask people all over the world, from all age groups, all cultures, what are the things you need in your life to make you happy, to contribute to a good life? And of course, having your needs met, having enough food and clothing and shelter is very important. So economic well-being is a basis for well-being. But besides that, across the globe, people were very uniform in agreeing on the things that they believe are needed to have a good life, besides financial well-being. And here they are. They include having social support around us, being able to believe that we can have a healthy life expectancy, and that means access to decent health care for ourselves and our children, the freedom to make life choices. And one interesting one, generosity, the ability to be generous, not just with our money, but with our time, with our energy, that people feel like life is better when they can give to others. And finally, people felt that to have a good life, they needed to be able to trust not only their government, a government that should not be corrupt, but also to be able to trust our neighbors. And so all of these things are identified all over the world as the things that are important to well-being. But when we ask young people what they think they need in order to have a good life, many of them answer something different. There was a survey several years ago in which people in their 20s were asked, what do you need to have a good life? And over 80% of young people said that their most important goal in life was to become rich. And another 50% said that a major life goal for them was to become famous. And finally, almost half of those same young adults said that they needed to have high achievement at work. They really needed to lean into their work lives. So why is it that there is this disconnection between what people all over the world tell us they need to have a good life and what these young adults think they want and what they want to aim for as they go through their careers? Money and fame and hard work. Well, one thing is that the good life, what's supposed to be a good life, is often defined for us, not by us, defined by the culture, defined by all the media influences that bombard us every day with advertisements and images on television and in film and on the internet, things that we are supposed to want and need to have a good life. So, for example, take this image. This is an image from Facebook. And it's the kind of image we see all the time. It's an image of people at a party. And if you were coming from outer space and you wanted to learn about what human life was like on Earth and your only source was Facebook, you would think that everybody was always at a wonderful party or spending time on a beautiful beach, because we show each other these parts of our lives. We show each other the happy times. What we don't show each other, what we don't post, are the photos of when I woke up feeling terrible, when I had a night being sick and I looked awful the next morning. None of us do that. But we all know that there are days when we don't have happy lives, when we don't feel good, when we're uncertain. And one of my teachers was fond of saying this, which I think is true, that we are always comparing our insides to other people's outsides. We're always comparing how we feel, often unhappy, uncertain, confused, to other people's outsides, to what other people show us, which is their happiest pictures, their shiniest moments in their lives. Now, this happens particularly with how we are supposed to look. If you think about what the media shows us about how bodies are supposed to look. I've chosen a man's body, but as you know, women's bodies are even more likely to be exploited in photo images that make us think we're all supposed to look perfect. When was the last time that the advertising industry showed us this ad? What we want to remember is that we are shown a set of images that are not real life for most of us. They don't have to be real life to make us happy, but we can believe that this is what we need to have a good life. So how do we really learn about life? Well, we learn mostly by asking people to remember the past, by asking people to tell us what their lives have been like up until now. But the problem with that is that our memories have holes in them. Our memories are faulty. They make errors. They even make things up. We can remember things that never really happened. So what I'm going to tell you about is research that followed people from the time they were very small all the way through into old age, to look at the same people from the time they were teenagers until they died, year after year, to find out what really makes people healthy and happy. The Harvard study of adult development began in 1938, and it began as a study of well-being with two groups of men. First was a group of Harvard college students, university students, who were 19 years old when they entered the study. And the second group was a group of boys from the city of Boston, from the poorest neighborhoods, and boys from families that had very difficult lives, not just because of poverty, but because of mental illness, because of family violence, because of physical illness. And so these boys were chosen to try to understand how children who were expected not to do well, how they made it through life. And so we studied both of these groups of men, very privileged Harvard College undergraduates and very underprivileged inner city men. And we started by visiting their homes, talking with their parents, talking with these young men about themselves and their lives, doing physical exams. And then all of these young men grew up and went into many different professions, factory workers, lawyers, physicians, one president of the United States, John Kennedy, poor people, rich people. And we followed them all the way into late life to study aging and retirement. We studied their mental health, their physical health. For the Harvard men, they served in World War II. We studied all the men's work lives, their close relationships, and then as they got older, we studied their aging and their retirement. We not only asked them to fill out questionnaires for us, but we got their medical records. We drew their blood. We scanned their brains. We talked to their wives and their children. We gathered information from their minds, their bodies, their families, so that we could track their lives across the entire lifespan. So what did we learn from all of this information collected over now 83 years? Well, it wasn't that we need fame and fortune and working nonstop. The biggest predictor of happiness, of well-being, was our social connections. What we found was that the people who had more connections to other people and better connections to other people were not only the happiest, but they lived longer and they stayed free of serious chronic illness longer than people who were more isolated. And it wasn't just the number of people in your social network, it was the quality of your relationships. Warmer relationships predicted longer life and better health. At first, we didn't believe our findings because we thought that this connection between our relationships and our physical health, that we didn't understand how that worked. But many other studies began to find the same connection. And now we've been spending the last 5 years studying how this actually happens, how the quality of our relationships keeps us healthy as well as happy. One of the things we found, and other studies have found this, is that loneliness, a big theme at this year's conference, is very dangerous for our health. That loneliness predicts earlier physical decline through heart disease, through arthritis, through earlier death. It also predicts earlier mental decline and more susceptibility to dementia. And in the United States, more than 1 in 4 people will tell you that they feel lonely. Now, loneliness is different from seeing very few people. Loneliness is that feeling we have inside that we are less connected to other people than we want to be. And you can be lonely in a crowd, you can be lonely in a marriage, you can be happy with very few people in your life. Now, one of the things we learn following relationships over time is that they change. So this is a graph of how marriages change over time. And what we find is that marriage is happiest when we first get together, that it is least happy when we have children, small children, but that it gets happier as the children grow up. But that it gets less happy in the United States when the children come back home to live. The other thing we find is that relationships don't have to be entirely smooth. Marriages, friendships can have conflicts as long as we feel that there is affection and respect. Having disagreements is not a problem and doesn't endanger your health. So one question is, how do we use our resources? How do we use the money that we can spend on ourselves? And one of the things that research shows us is that when people spend their money on things, on objects, on jewelry, on electronics, they are less happy than when they spend money on experiences. So as we say, the best things in life are not things, they are not material things. Why is that? Well, we find that actually buying material things makes us compare ourselves to other people more. If I buy a new fancy television set, I can get very excited about it, but then I go to my neighbor's house and find that he has an even bigger television set, and I feel sad by comparison. So material things make us compare things. On the other hand, experiences with other people, like going on vacation, are not things that we tend to compare with other people. They're our own private, wonderful experiences, often that bring us into connection with other people, or closer connection with our families, should we go on vacation with our families. So it's a way of understanding that buying material things makes us less happy than having new experiences, and especially having new experiences with the people who we're close to. Now, one of the disturbing trends in our culture, as you know, is that we are more and more alone. That this title, Bowling Alone, refers to a book by an American sociologist in which he found that in the 1950s, 60s, 70s, more and more Americans stopped joining community organizations, they stopped going to churches, they stopped engaging in community life, and they stayed home. And this coincided with the introduction of television into the American home. People stayed home, watched television, and stopped engaging in their communities. And when these sociologists went back 25 years later to find out what had happened, our social engagement was even lower, that people stopped joining clubs and organizations. They stopped having dinners at which the whole family ate dinner together. People stopped taking vacations with their families. In 1983, 12% of Americans had no one that they could confide in. When they went back and asked in 2003, 1 in 4 people had no one on earth to whom they could talk about personal matters. Why is this happening? Well, in the 1950s and 60s, television had a lot to do with it. Now, the digital revolution seems to be causing a further decline in our social engagement with each other. One of the things we find is that our closest relationships are easy to neglect, that we are often on our phones, on our screens, and that we are giving each other only partial attention, if we're giving each other attention at all. We stop looking at the world around us as this man looking at his phone and missing the whale right next to his boat is showing us. And of course, what we are modeling for our children is a life online, a life without in-person human connection. So how do we lean into relationships? How do we really prioritize relationships? Well, there are many ways, but one of the most important ways comes from one of my Zen teachers. I am very involved in Zen meditation, and one of our teachers has a wonderful quote. He says, "Attention is the most basic form of love." That giving people our undivided attention is the most precious gift we can give. And that's a decision you can make right now in each moment. When you finish with this online live stream, you can decide where you're going to direct your attention and who you will give it to. So there are many things we can do to nurture our relationships. We can make sure we set aside time to have conversation and alone time with our spouse, with a partner who we might take for granted. Family dinners are so important. Times when families regularly eat together or go on hikes together. And community involvement, volunteering for projects that we care about. Such important activities that can help build relationships that in turn will help us stay healthier and happier longer. So my take-home messages are simple. It's that human connection is a major source of happiness and also of physical health. That technology can connect us, but it can also isolate us, so we have to be very mindful of how we use our technology, and that we can very deliberately structure our lives in order to combat isolation and nurture human connection. We are doing this in our Lifespan Research Foundation, which we founded to bring the insights of lifespan research of the kind I'm telling you to people who can use it. So we are developing courses called Roadmaps for Life Transitions, in which people come together in small groups and get to think about and talk about where they are in their lives and what they care about the most and how they can make positive changes in their lives. So I will leave you with one quote. This is from the writer Maya Angelou, who wrote, "My mission in life is not merely to survive, but to thrive, and to do so with some passion, some compassion, some humor, and some style." That is my mission in the research that I do, and that is my wish for all of you as we all wish for a happier and healthier 2021. Thank you very much for your attention.
네. Thank you, Professor. Please stay with us. Listening to your lecture, I believe happiness lies in choices. If you make good choices, then we can have good connection and your life changes. So happiness is not defined by fate, but it can change. So happiness starts with good choices. That's what I learned from your lecture. You can post your questions on the chatting box on YouTube. Now, I'd like to invite President Choi Jae-chol. He's currently president of BIE. Denmark is the happiest country in the world. His title is The Key to Happiness, Seen Through the Eyes of an Ambassador. Please welcome him with a big round of applause. Good morning. I'm so happy. I'm Choi Jae-chol. I think I have 20 minutes for my presentation. I've been serving as a diplomat for the past 38 years, and I specialized in climate change, and up until May last year I served as an ambassador in Denmark. It was 2016 when I was sent to Denmark. Why do I stress November? Many Danish people hate November. Why is that? November is the season when days get shorter, and if you have lived in Northern Europe begins rainy season in November, so Denmark people don't like November, which is cloudy, rainy, and dim, and don't have bright days. It continues until March. So November is the beginning season for that season. So Denmark people hate November. That's why the Danish don't like November. So when I arrived at Denmark, the first place I went to was a bookstore. It was a bookstore. The first book was this book, How to Be Danish. It was the Happiness bookstore in Denmark. So I asked myself, why are there so many books on happiness? Many people told me that because Danish people begin to spend more time from November. That's why we sell lots of books on happiness around this season. So I knew that I have to study for several months from November. So I bought those books and began to read them. Actually, when you think about Denmark, you will associate Denmark with this sculpture, mermaid sculpture. This sculpture was made after the Andersen's tale. So Danish people, the Danish are proud of the one of the best quality beer, Carlsberg, and the president of Carlsberg was motivated by the Andersen's tale. So he commissioned a sculpture to Karlbad, and he asked a ballerina to be a model for this mermaid sculpture. But the ballerina, when she realized that this would be a nude sculpture, so she refused. And the sculptor's wife offered herself to be the model. So the sculptor created this mermaid sculpture by looking at her own wife, at his own wife. To the right is the mermaid next to Hangang River, which is about 80% the size of the original sculpture. This mermaid sculpture was set up after Seoul signed sistership with Denmark. Then the Danish Prime Minister Rasmussen donated this sculpture to Seoul. These are two mermaids sculpture. You can see the factories in the background in Danish, but in Seoul, we see the apartment complexes in the background. So, Korea and Denmark, let us compare. Actually, Denmark has Greenland and Faroe Islands, but forget about that now. Denmark has about 300 islands. It's about half the size of the Korea in land size, and the population is about 1/10 of Korea, but 66% of the land of Denmark is farming land, and the highest elevation is 11 meters. But Korea is a very mountainous area, and 7% of land is farming land. That means for a country with 6 million but Korea has 50 million population, but the available land, the two countries have about a similar size available land, and the GDP is very different. Denmark is 57,000, Korea is about 43,000. So the conditions are not very different between those two countries, but there are great differences about other factors. As our moderator pointed out, the happiness index. Denmark was the happiest country from 2013 to 2016, and third in 2017 and second last year. But Korea 57th in 2017, and Korea was the 61st happiest country in 2019. And as Professor Waldinger pointed out, the transparency, the corruption is also very important in measuring happiness. Denmark's transparency is very high, but Korea is around the middle in the ranking, and the OECD's Judiciary Trust Index, Denmark is the highest, but Korea comes at 39th place in the Judiciary Trust Index. And the Social Trust Index, Denmark first and Korea 23rd. So this graph shows that Denmark and Korea may have similar conditions, but in other factors, there are great differences. That's why we believe that Denmark is the happiest country. Then,
So, what is the Denmark from the eyes of Korean? So the students in their elementary school and middle school believe that Denmark is the country of the fairy tales of Andersen. I think that's one of the rare fairy tales that have been translated into all the languages in the world, like The Ugly Duckling, The Little Mermaid, and The Little Match Girl. Maybe these students may believe Denmark is the country of Andersen's fairy tales. But for adults, if we think of Denmark, so adults live through this industrialization of Korea, but Denmark overcame the difficulties, and during the Prussian ruling, they lost about a third of its land, and when it went to bankruptcy, they had Pasteur, Grundtvig, and Dalgas. They led the reform. So Denmark is a country of dairy farming that overcame hardships. But what about to the young generation? If they think of Denmark, they think as a country of luxurious goods and design. Denmark has Royal Copenhagen. That's one of the luxurious tableware that young people want to have, like Bang & Olufsen and Pandora furniture and lighting equipment. So Denmark is the country of this luxurious goods and design. For economy, for the people who are engaged in economy, it's a country with the global leading companies, Maersk. It has Lego. It also has the brand of Ecco, which is a footwear company. And it also has Novo Nordisk. It also has Vestas, which is #1 wind power company. And it also has a beer company, Carlsberg. So Denmark has a lot of global leading companies. It's not that Denmark is pursuing the largest; it is pursuing the best in the world. That's, I think, the secret of Denmark's success. Then we have to ask ourselves: has Denmark been happy all the time? Denmark came to the world stage in a very glorious way during the Viking Age. The Vikings occupied the northern Germany and the Baltic Sea, Estonia from the Viking, and then the Vikings started to fall. So Greenland and Iceland. So it made roads into all those areas. So Valdemar II occupied the northern Germany and the Baltic Sea, Estonia, and the capital of Estonia is Tallinn, and that has the meaning of the city of Danish. Denmark formed Kalmar Union with Norway and Sweden, and it also formed. It resisted the advance of the Hanseatic leagues, making roads into Baltic. They had sound dues that was introduced in 1429. So 1 to 2% of cargo value was collected. So the royal court and the aristocrats were extravagant. They lost pioneership. Then came the time of crisis for Denmark. It happened very simple. The Kalmar Union was threatened. So the King of Denmark visited Sweden, invited the aristocrats in Sweden, and that fist turned into the bloodbath. That's when Sweden and Denmark started to conflict, and Denmark also failed in its diplomacy. And Denmark was second largest Northern country following the UK. So Nelson came to Copenhagen, and they made this Danish people made a mistake. So the Colonel Nelson bombarded Copenhagen for 7 days. Almost everything was demolished except for the palace. Only a part of the palace is left, and that is currently used by the Danish parliament. And Copenhagen was on fire. And also, Nelson took away all the fleet of Denmark and confiscated the Danish fleet in 1807. And Denmark engaged in a 7-year Nordic war against Sweden, and after that, Norway was ceded. And after going through 2 rounds of wars against Prussia, 1/3 of its land was handed over to Germany, and half of the population was gone. So the people in Denmark were worried, how can Denmark survive? Then came the pioneers like Grundtvig, Dalgas, Andersen, Kierkegaard. And cooperatives started to flourish. And businessmen in Denmark built a small commercial fleet, and that turned into the Maersk, which is the largest ship liner in the world now, and Carlsberg. Those are the representative companies in Denmark, and that's when these companies started to be set up. So when I was appointed to Denmark, I learned there are like the new Danish canon. Those are the values that Danish people cherish. First is the welfare state. Denmark started to become the welfare country starting from the late 1990s. If you look at Denmark in the 1970s and 80s, Denmark used to be the patient of the Northern Europe. There are lots of sick people and like homeless people in Denmark back then. But with the reform, Denmark became one of the countries that have a welfare system in the world, and the trust is very important. Trust with the politicians, the society, that's important, and the gender equality. Those are the canons. And Danish people also have this Jantes law. It's from the novel by a Danish writer. And the people living in a remote village think they are not very special. But if you look at the law of Jante, and all the Danish people do not say this. These are the Jante's laws, but these Danish people live by this law from the very early age. After spending more than 2.5 years in Denmark, I was wondering to myself why Danish people are happy. First secret is they have consensual democracy. So after the first oil shock in 1937, Denmark had to decide which energy source they will have to use. Many people thought that Denmark should use the wind power because it has lots of wind. But a lot of people also thought they also have to use the nuclear power generation. So after more than 10 years of controversy at the parliament, they adopted the wind power. So it's one of the strongest countries in the world with the renewable energy. So British ambassador to Denmark called this kind of democracy as the tribal democracy. Denmark is a society based on trust. So the common factors of these Nordic countries is the trust, and some people say this trust is the Nordic gold. Danish people are proud of their brand. It's a small but strong country, and Denmark aims to be the best instead of the largest. And another secret is Danishness. And what is that? It's hygge. This was selected the word of the year in 2016. The pronunciation of Danish is very difficult, and it's like, if you say German with a hot potato in the mouth, then it may sound Danish. During the winter, it was very cold, and I asked to Danish people, why are you happy in this cold weather, but you're still happy? Then their answer was the weather was not bad. We only have bad clothing. So happiness is something that Danish people were making for themselves. It's not something that were given to the Danish people. So I thought that was a secret of the happiness in Denmark. This concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Choi. Listening to your presentation, you have something in common with Dr. Waldinger. The social trust, which is the social trust, which is the basic foundation for the happiness. And as Professor Waldinger pointed out, making a good choices requires good education to be happy. That boils down to social confidence, the precondition for happiness for our society. So now it's time for discussion. Before we have a Q&A, we will have an online quiz show before having conversation. Just in a minute. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed the keynote speech. Now let's begin the happiness talk show. Dr. Waldinger is joining us from the US, and Ambassador Choi Jae-chol is with us offline. And you can post your questions on the chatting box on YouTube. We really enjoyed your lecture today, and it all boils down to good choices and good education. And happiness is, in a sense, it's not a fate that's given to us, but it depends on the education, on on making good choices. And Dr. Waldinger, we have a question to you. To the survey about the elderly valued generosity as the key to happiness, while those in their 20s valued money, fame, and achievement and comparison in your lecture. So, what makes this difference between the age groups?
Well, it's a great question. It's not true that young people don't value generosity. They do. It was in this survey that many of them wanted fame and fortune, but I think that survey was 5 years ago, and now, given where the world has gone, many more young people are concerned about giving to the world and about giving of themselves. I do think that older people become more concerned about their legacy, about what the world will be like when they are no longer in the world. And so many of those people place a priority on giving to the world in ways that will continue the things that they care about most once they are no longer here. So I think there becomes a kind of urgency that with old age, because as we get older, we realize time is really short. And if we want to do something with our lives, we need to do it while we have time.
답변 고맙습니다. 근데 작년 참
Thank you. So the elderly people realize they don't have much time left. If they had known that in their 20s, when they were in 20s, then they should be living a better life. So what advice would you like to give them?
Well, there's research on whether you can actually teach wisdom to younger people. And it turns out it's very difficult to do that. That the experience of life is very powerful, and the passing of time is a very powerful stimulator for changing our priorities as we age. So we can tell young people, you should make this a priority or that a priority, and that may help, but really young people have to live their lives and have experiences that then shape what's important to them. So I wish, and I think many young people wish that we could just tell them what to do with their lives and everything would be fine, but that's not how it works. We really need to have our own experiences and our own journeys through life in order to come to our own conclusions about what's most important.
알겠습니다.
Thank you. Thank you for your answer. Ambassador Choi, the Denmark, you stressed the importance of trust. So the young people in Denmark, in Denmark and Korea, I believe there are big differences. One of the differences was that young people care about how the outer world look at them. Is it the case with the Denmark, or is there any difference between Denmark and Korea? As I see the young people in Denmark and Korean young people is the college admission rate. In Korea, when you graduate from high school, about 70 or 80% of high school graduates go to college, but in Denmark, it's only 40% the college admission rate, and after graduation from high school, they travel for about a year to find their own identity, and they enjoy their life before going to college. And Denmark government also supports that. The Danish government pays about 1,000 euros for young people, but it's not free. There's a rule. For example, if they are from a rich family and living with the parents, then they don't give them 1,000 euros. But to young people who are independent from parents, then they can receive 1,000 euros. The lesson here is that the Danish people, they value freedom, and Danish young people travel themselves, and they realize that they know they have trust even if they don't go to college. That's a social trust. But for Korean people, we don't think like that. Korean people think that an opportunity lost once is an opportunity lost forever. So that's why Korean young people are angered and give up on themselves. There are many Korean young people. I believe that's one of the biggest differences between Korean young people and Danish. Weldinger, the Denmark it has some small population, but U.S. is a melting pot, lots of different races. So, what's your take on this? Given the racial differences, so many different races in the U.S.
Yes, different races, but also different cultures. So even among Caucasians, for example, or among Asian Americans or African Americans, there are very different subgroups. Some subgroups value education above all. Some subgroups value family and remaining close to family and being loyal to family above all. So racial groups are important, but other priorities and other cultural traditions are important as well. One of the things that I'd like to say to Ambassador Choi's point, the last point, this idea that an opportunity missed is an opportunity lost forever, that is a myth. When we study people's lives over 80 years, we find that no life turns out the way people expect it to. That you can have the best plan in the world, and you can think that you have taken every opportunity that you are supposed to, but life has a way of coming at us and handing us unexpected events and challenges. So I think for young people, the message should be, leave yourself open to possibilities that you haven't even thought of at this point in your life.
What about you, Ambassador Choi? So what Professor Waldinger just said is very important, I believe. If an opportunity is missed, it's lost. That opportunity may have been lost, but we have lots of other potential opportunities open. So that kind of windows of opportunities are kind of closed by adults. So that could pose some challenges to the young generation. And the letter to find to find a good job may be gone, and the social safety net is actually for the ones who already have the vested power. That kind of disappoints the young generation. In that sense, we have to make efforts to reform and improve ourselves. And here, what is most important is to find ways to strengthen the social trust. Thank you. So I have this question to Professor Waldinger. Your school started the research with the 724 people. Are there people of them? Are there people who are still alive now?
Yes. About 50 of the 724 original men are still alive. They're all in their 90s.
아,
But we have been studying their children. We've been studying 1,300 of their children.
네네.
They are of the baby boomer generation, so they are all in their 50s and 60s, mostly. And now we are about to start studying their grandchildren and their great-grandchildren.
예. 알겠습니다. 여기서
Thank you. I have this question. You said about 50 of them are still alive at the age of in their 90s. So you said social connection may have some positive effect on the longevity. So is there any common factors among all these 50 alive people? Is there any common factors amongst these alive people?
Yes, they have good genes. They have relatives who lived long, but also many of them are quite well connected socially. They see other people, they have other people around who stimulate them, not just people who take care of them, but who spend time with them. Because what we know is that spending time with people is nourishing, it's energizing, it makes us feel good emotionally, and that helps us feel good physically. So many of these 50 people are people surrounded by family or friends, or who have made new communities for themselves among older people.
So these 50 people, were they happy from the very beginning, or so were they happy when they first joined the research, or did they change their level of happiness in the course of study?
It depends. Some were pretty happy throughout their lives. Some grew happier as their lives changed, as they grew older and more mature. Some people grew less happy as they went through life, sometimes because very unfortunate things happened to them. So people have taken very different life paths through these long lives that we've studied. No person takes the same path as any other person, and that's one of the most wonderful things about doing this kind of study, to get to see that.
Then, is happiness like a faith, or can we change the happiness? Is this some kind of opportunity, being happy, or is it just given like a fate?
Well, let me just say that no one is happy all the time. I don't know any human being on the planet who's happy all day, every day. That's just not realistic. Some days we don't feel so good. We're in a bad mood. Something bad has happened and we're upset. So we can't be happy all day long, every day. But we can build a bedrock of well-being. And what I mean by that is by taking care of ourselves physically, by taking care of ourselves emotionally, and taking care of our relationships, and nurturing our friendships and nurturing our family relationships, we can build a foundation so that we can get through the hard times because we have friends, we have decent health, and then we wait until the hard times pass and we're back to better times. So what I would say is that we can build a foundation of well-being, but we can't expect to be happy all the time, no matter what we do.
네, 답.
Thank you for your answer. So being happy in Korean is like you are fortunate. So we say that's enough happiness. And is there any Danish word for happiness? That's Hygge, as I showed you in my presentation. So Hygge is happiness in Danish. So there are lots of variations of this. Hygge, it's like having a Hygge time, or we have Hygge relationship. So that's a given word, but this word makes new things based on the conditions. So that's the happiness in Denmark. So I thought that these people, Hygge, the Danish people, make the conditions to make this Hygge for themselves. And what I thought the most important part of this foundation is, as Professor Waldinger said, they do not compare themselves with their the friends or family or other people. They just look inside themselves, and that's one of the secrets. And that's expressed in their respect to diversity. And that also can take the form of lots of social gatherings. So there are lots of groups or communities of people who engage in the same jobs or hobbies or things like that. So they have this culture of working together. So that culture is very important. Another factor is inclusion. So they try to include or encompass the groups that are left behind. How do they engage these people who are lagging behind will determine the happiness index of a society. So they have this respect for diversity and they have this engaging society. So and in order to achieve this, you should have transparency and trust. So the Danish people have a very good talent of making these things happen.
Yes, the social trust is very important. But despite that, Denmark people, their happiness index is the highest. So does this force Danish people to be happy? As I see that's what I thought at first, because when it's cold and when it's in the northern Europe, they don't see the sunshine, especially from November to March. It's less than 10 hours when they can see the bright sun. So I wonder why they will endure that season. But they believe that they are happy when they are with their friends and their family. So they believe they can be happy. They can have Hygge. When it's cold outside, when it's windy outside, they can have a warm tea before the fireplace. Then they feel happy. So I believe that they are creating the conditions for happiness by themselves. That's not given. That's never given. No matter how difficult the conditions are, Danish people have a talent to turn the difficulties into something to be happy about. So they have the ability to turn everything into the source of happiness. Yes, I believe that's connected to their social culture, the social tradition, because Danish people have faced harsh environmental conditions. So reading books and having conversation with loved ones, they found happiness in those things. Thank you. So Dr. Waldinger, I'm a documentary director. I create document about animal or even water. When they are in a good position, they show they are happy. When there is a drought, even a single drop of water makes plant flourish. If we can apply this to humans, we are living in the urban area, so we are isolated from the nature. So in a sense, we don't realize that we are isolated from the nature. So what do you think on this? Our relationship to nature, is it our failure to realize that we are isolated from the nature? Does it have something to do with happiness?
Well, we do know that people having access to nature really does increase their happiness. But we can have access to nature by going to a park in a city. My Zen meditation practice shows me that I can have a very powerful experience of nature just sitting and looking at a tree on the street and really studying that tree, studying the pattern of the leaves, studying the bark, studying the things that I never notice as I walk by that tree every day. That if we really give our full attention, even to small aspects of nature within an urban environment, we can derive a lot of satisfaction and nourishment and happiness from giving that undivided attention to the natural world.
Thank you. So we have questions on the YouTube chatting box. Do we have more questions? So I like to ask question. So I can see the monitor. So question to Ambassador Che. Let me check what question we have. Thank you for your lecture. The key to happiness in Denmark, the figure. What do you think is the key to Koreans' key to happiness? A very good question. I believe that was the question I had all the time while I was in Denmark. Why do Korean people don't find happiness, don't have lower happiness index compared to Denmark? I felt that the answer is a dynamism of Korean people, because Korean people had experienced economic difficulties and we developed the desire for development. But the desire, in a sense, turned into something sense of obsession, which made us under-evaluate ourselves. So the key to happiness for Korean people, I believe that lies in the dynamism of Korean people, and we are the people where our ancestors live with the nature. So we have to learn from our ancestors' lifestyle. I believe that's the key to be happy for Korean people. The dynamism of Korean history and our relationship to the nature. Yes, Koreans people have. We have our own wisdom for happiness. Now we don't have much time. So last question to Dr. Weldinger.
So the material spending that makes us compare ourselves with others makes us unhappy. That was very impressive to me. So my question is, how can we begin to have healthy relationship with people to feel happy? How can we prepare for healthy relationship?
Probably the best way to think about it is like physical fitness, that it is a practice that you do, that we take care of our most important relationships. And what that means is that just like, working out at the gym or going for a jog, we don't just do it once and then we're finished. The idea of reaching out to a friend or spending time with a brother or a sister is not something we do once. We go back over and over again, and we make it a priority to spend time with people. And that also means that when there are difficulties in relationships, that it's important to try to work out those difficulties rather than lose the relationships, rather than let them fall away. So it's really investing time and energy. And that means, for example, on a weekend, deciding how you are going to spend your time. Will you spend it at work? Will you spend it at home on Facebook? Or will you spend it with a friend, going for a walk? That there are choices we can make that prioritize our relationships, that will build a happier life.
말씀
Thank you for your answer. Professor Robert Waldinger and Ambassador Choi, thank you for your time. I hope to see you again next time. Thank you.
대한민국 대표 행복 특화 컨벤션 행복 인사이트. 행운을 주는 도시 부산에서 7개 행운의 다리가 불을 밝히고 온라인으로 함께 행복의 촛불을 켜는 행복 점등식. 세계적 연사들의 행복 강연으로 더불어 함께 대한민국의 행복을 응원합니다. 12월 22일부터 23일까지 온라인 생중계되는 행복 인사이트에 여러분의 많은 참여 바랍니다. 대한민국 대표 행복 특화 컨벤션 행복 인사이트. 행운을 주는 도시 부산에서 7개 행운의 다리가 불을 밝히고 온라인으로 함께 행복의 촛불을 켜는 행복 점등식. 세계적 연사들의 행복 강연으로 더불어 함께 대한민국의 행복을 응원합니다. 12월 22일부터 23일까지 온라인 생중계되는 행복 인사이트에 여러분의 많은 참여 바랍니다. 대한민국 대한민국 대표 행복 특화 컨벤션 행복 인사이트. 행운을 주는 도시 부산에서 7개 행운의 다리가 불을 밝히고 온라인으로 함께 행복의 촛불을 켜는 행복 점등식. 세계적 연사들의 행복 강연으로 더불어 함께 대한민국의 행복을 응원합니다. 12월 22일부터 23일까지 온라인 생중계되는 행복 인사이트에 여러분의 많은 참여 바랍니다. 대한민국 대표 행복 특화 컨벤션 행복 인사이트. 행운을 주는 도시 부산에서 7개 행운의 다리가 불을 밝히고 온라인으로 함께 행복의 촛불을 켜는 행복 점등식. 세계적 연사들의 행복 강연으로 더불어 함께 대한민국의 행복을 응원합니다. 12월 22일부터 23일까지 온라인 생중계되는 행복 인사이트에 여러분의 많은 참여 바랍니다. 대한민국 대표 행복 특화 컨벤션 행복 인사이트. 행운을 주는 도시 부산에서 7개 행운의 다리가 불을 밝히고 온라인으로 함께 행복의 촛불을 켜는 행복 점등식. 세계적 연사들의 행복 강연으로 더불어 함께 대한민국의 행복을 응원합니다. 12월 22일부터 23일까지 온라인 생중계되는 행복 인사이트에 여러분의 많은 참여 바랍니다. 대한민국 대표 행복 특화 컨벤션 행복 인사이트. 행운을 주는 도시 부산에서 7개 행운의 다리가 불을 밝히고 온라인으로 함께 행복의 촛불을 켜는 행복 점등식. 세계적 연사들의 행복 강연으로 더불어 함께 대한민국의 행복을 응원합니다. 12월 22일부터 23일까지 온라인 생중계되는 행복 인사이트에 여러분의 많은 참여 바랍니다. 대한민국 대표 행복 특화 컨벤션 행복 인사이트. 행운을 주는 도시 부산에서 7개 행운의 다리가 불을 밝히고 온라인으로 함께 행복의 촛불을 켜는 행복 점등식. 세계적 연사들의 행복 강연으로 더불어 함께 대한민국의 행복을 응원합니다. 12월 22일부터 23일까지 온라인 생중계되는 행복 인사이트에 여러분의 많은 참여 바랍니다. 대한민국 대표 행복 특화 컨벤션 행복 인사이트. 행운을 주는 도시 부산에서 7개 행운의 다리가 불을 밝히고 온라인으로 함께 행복의 촛불을 켜는 행복 점등식. 세계적 연사들의 행복 강연으로 더불어 함께 대한민국의 행복을 응원합니다. 12월 22일부터 23일까지 온라인 생중계되는 행복 인사이트에 여러분의 많은 참여 바랍니다. 대한민국 대표 행복 특화 컨벤션 행복 인사이트. 행운을 주는 도시 부산에서 7개 행운의 다리가 불을 밝히고 온라인으로 함께 행복의 촛불을 켜는 행복 점등식. 세계적 연사들의 행복 강연으로 더불어 함께 대한민국의 행복을 응원합니다. 12월 22일부터 23일까지 온라인 생중계되는 행복 인사이트에 여러분의 많은 참여 바랍니다. 대한민국 대표 행복 특화 컨벤션 행복 인사이트. 행운을 주는 도시 부산에서 7개 행운의 다리가 불을 밝히고 온라인으로 함께 행복의 촛불을 켜는 행복 점등식. 세계적 연사들의 행복 강연으로 더불어 함께 대한민국의 행복을 응원합니다. 12월 22일부터 23일까지 온라인 생중계되는 행복 인사이트에 여러분의 많은 참여 바랍니다. 대한민국 대표 행복 특화 컨벤션 행복 인사이트. 행운을 주는 도시 부산에서 7개 행운의 다리가 불을 밝히고 온라인으로 함께 행복의 촛불을 켜는 행복 점등식. 세계적 연사들의 행복 강연으로 더불어 함께 대한민국의 행복을 응원합니다. 12월 22일부터 23일까지 온라인 생중계되는 행복 인사이트에 여러분의 많은 참여 바랍니다. 대한민국 대표 행복 특화 컨벤션 행복 인사이트. 행운을 주는 도시 부산에서 7개 행운의 다리가 불을 밝히고 온라인으로 함께 행복의 촛불을 켜는 행복 점등식. 세계적 연사들의 행복 강연으로 더불어 함께 대한민국의 행복을 응원합니다. 12월 22일부터 23일까지 온라인 생중계되는 행복 인사이트에 여러분의 많은 참여 바랍니다. 대한민국 대표 행복 특화 컨벤션 행복 인사이트. 행운을 주는 도시 부산에서 7개 행운의 다리가 불을 밝히고 온라인으로 함께 행복의 촛불을 켜는 행복 점등식. 세계적 연사들의 행복 강연으로 더불어 함께 대한민국의 행복을 응원합니다. 12월 22일부터 23일까지 온라인 생중계되는 행복 인사이트에 여러분의 많은 참여 바랍니다. 대한민국 대표 행복 특화 컨벤션 행복 인사이트. 행운을 주는 도시 부산에서 7개 행운의 다리가 불을 밝히고 온라인으로 함께 행복의 촛불을 켜는 행복 점등식. 세계적 연사들의 행복 강연으로 더불어 함께 대한민국의 행복을 응원합니다. 12월 22일부터 23일까지 온라인 생중계되는 행복 인사이트에 여러분의 많은 참여 바랍니다. 대한민국 대표 행복 특화 컨벤션 행복 인사이트. 행운을 주는 도시 부산에서 7개 행운의 다리가 불을 밝히고 온라인으로 함께 행복의 촛불을 켜는 행복 점등식. 세계적 연사들의 행복 강연으로 더불어 함께 대한민국의 행복을 응원합니다. 12월 22일부터 23일까지 온라인 생중계되는 행복 인사이트에 여러분의 많은 참여 바랍니다. 대한민국 대표 행복 특화 컨벤션 행복 인사이트. 행운을 주는 도시 부산에서 7개 행운의 다리가 불을 밝히고 온라인으로 함께 행복의 촛불을 켜는 행복 점등식. 세계적 연사들의 행복 강연으로 더불어 함께 대한민국의 행복을 응원합니다. 12월 22일부터 23일까지 온라인 생중계되는 행복 인사이트에 여러분의 많은 참여 바랍니다. 대한민국 대표 행복 특화 컨벤션 행복 인사이트. 행운을 주는 도시 부산에서 7개 행운의 다리가 불을 밝히고 온라인으로 함께 행복의 촛불을 켜는 행복 점등식. 세계적 연사들의 행복 강연으로 더불어 함께 대한민국의 행복을 응원합니다. 12월 22일부터 23일까지 온라인 생중계되는 행복 인사이트에 여러분의 많은 참여 바랍니다. 대한민국 대표 행복 특화 컨벤션 행복 인사이트. 행운을 주는 도시 부산에서 7개 행운의 다리가 불을 밝히고 온라인으로 함께 행복의 촛불을 켜는 행복 점등식. 세계적 연사들의 행복 강연으로 더불어 함께 대한민국의 행복을 응원합니다. 12월 22일부터 23일까지 온라인 생중계되는 행복 인사이트에 여러분의 많은 참여 바랍니다.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us for the afternoon session of Happiness Insight 2020. My name is Laura McCluckey. I'm the CEO of Wellme Wellness Solutions, and I will be your host and MC for this session. It's an absolute honor to be here. I'm very excited about this session, and you might notice that I'm wearing yoga clothes, and that's why I'm excited, because we're going to do some mindful movement in this session. So I'll invite you to take a comfortable position and let's get ourselves into the first session, mindfulness, movement, finding happiness through movement. Okay, let's take a seat. If you're wearing high heels like me, please feel free to take them off. And I'm going to ask you to find a very comfortable position in your chair. Now, I know a lot of us are feeling tired and feeling stressed and feeling a little bit bored of 2020. So hopefully this session will give you a little bit of respite. One of the things that has very much helped me stay positive and optimistic and grounded during this past year is my personal mindfulness and my personal yoga practice. So I'd love to share that with you today. And as we know, mindfulness and yoga, incredibly good for your health, your mental health, physical health, but also a fantastic stress management tool. So please do follow along at home. Please do follow along here to our very limited guests who are here. And I'm going to ask you first of all to imagine that there is a little string tied to your belly button, okay? So your belly button, there's a string in here, and what we're going to do is we're just going to pull this string and we're going to push our belly button forward a little bit. Just tilt the pelvis a little bit so you're finding a nice straight line in your back. And let's take some deep breaths. So inhale through the nose. Exhale. I know you're feeling sleepy after lunchtime. Follow along. Don't take a nap. I know we've got the ocean. Don't take a nap. Not yet. Inhale. And as you exhale, feel the body relax. Last one, inhale. Feels good, right? Okay, so we're going to put our hands on top of our legs, just comfortably, feet on the floor. And I'd invite you to close your eyes and send your awareness into your feet. Okay? So just feel that connection between the feet and the ground. Take a nice deep breath. Inhale and exhale. And we're going to gently move that attention into your bottom. So feel the connection between your body and the chair. Inhale. And let the air just flow out of you. Exhale. And now finally we're going to send our attention into our hands. And just feel the sensation of touch there between the hands and your legs. And again, inhale. Exhale. What a nice way to start our practice. Okay, so for yoga, a couple of things before we begin. If you are pregnant, no twisting, okay? If you have blood pressure issues, when we do a forward fold, keep your head above your waistline. Safety first. We're not going to be doing crazy down dogs or flying yoga. However, you do have to be careful, so only do what you can do. So we start and end the same way. Hands up, inhale. Hands together and in front of the heart. Namaste. Oh, it's exciting. Namaste. All right. So from here, all we're going to do is do a side body stretch. So put your right hand onto the chair, maybe grab a chair. And on the inhale, we reach up and bend over. That's it. Nice side body stretch. Push those fingers. Push those fingers. Good job pushing the fingers and back down. There we go. Other side, inhale. Really stretch out those ribs. Oh, that feels nice. And back down to center. This time we're going to go for a full stretch. Inhale. Exhale. As we exhale, forward fold. Keep the chest up. That's it. Keep the chest up. And then release everything. Allow the head to just relax. Release the tension in the arms. We're going to take 3 deep breaths here. Inhale. Exhale. Second, inhale. Exhale. Last one. Inhale. Exhale. Now we come back up slowly, 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 slowly. Head is last. And we look like a ghost, so we move the hair off the face. Ah, there we are. Okay, now we're going to move into a side twist. Again, if you're pregnant or you have any back issues, please don't do this, okay? Or very, very gently. We're going to put the left hand on the right leg, right knee. Right hand comes out in front of us. Thumb is up. Inhale. And twist. If you want to go deeper, hook that right arm behind over the chair. Oh, look at the ocean. That's nice. Inhale. Exhale. And back to center. Other side. Right hand comes across onto the left knee. Left thumb up. Inhale. Twist from the belly. Good. Find a comfortable position and a nice deep breath. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. And back to center on the exhale. Nice. Okay, this one might get you right in the butt and in the thighs because we're going to take the right leg and cross it over the left knee. Okay? So again, just as much as you can. Point, tip, don't point the feet. We want to keep the feet flexed and active. All right? So here, chest is open, shoulders are down. Remember that thread attached to your belly button? Let's pull that forward and we can pull ourselves towards our thighs. If you stop here, perfect. You feel that deep stretch. If you want to go a little bit deeper, let's go. Oh. If you can go all the way down, release everything and relax. Inhale and exhale. Slowly come up. Okay, other side. Again, figure 4. Keep that foot flexed. Chest open, shoulders down, belly button comes forward. Exhale. Good job, nice and slow. Well done. Listening to your bodies, incredibly important. Inhale, exhale. I can see some of our viewers at home following along. Good job, everybody. And a little bit deeper. If you can go all the way, send your head down. Inhale, exhale, come up. Okay. We've come to the most exciting part, a seated eagle. And it's not like this, although you might think it would be. It's a twisting pose. So we take the right leg, cross it over the left. We take the right foot, tuck it behind the left leg. So we're twisted. We're so twisted. Arms come out, thumbs are up. We take the right arm under and it comes up. Then we bring it round to meet its friend. Hello! If we can clap like this, great. If we can't, back to back is perfectly fine. So we're here. Your arms are probably down here. Bring them forward. Nice, good job. Deep breath. Can you see my face? Hi. And exhale, slowly untangle yourself and the legs. Other side. Left leg comes across. Nice and slow. Left leg comes behind. Okay, so we're tangling our legs up together. Arms come up again. This time, left arm comes under. And whoop, hello. Right arm comes around to meet it. Again, if you're here, that's all right. Do what you can do. And then just push those shoulders forward, bring the arms up. That's it. Deep stretch across the back there. Inhale and exhale. And slowly detangle the arms, detangle the legs. And we're just going to give ourselves a little time to just, How was that? Okay, we finish the same way we started. Arms up, inhale. Hands come together. They meet in front of the heart. Thank you all so much for joining me in this very short mindful movement segment. And I will see you for the rest of the session. Thank you so much. Namaste. Well, a round of applause and everything. Well done, everybody. Well done for showing up. And hopefully you feel a little bit more awake by now. You might have thought, why is she wearing yoga clothes? That's why. That's why. However, we're very lucky for the next session, and I'm very honored to be able to present it to you. We asked Generation Z what they thought about happiness. And so we have 3 phenomenal speakers here today to tell us all about their take on happiness, which these days is such a fleeting thought when we've got so many other things to worry about. So we decided, what better way to learn about happiness than to ask the happiest bunch of people on earth, young people. We'll wait and see what they have to say. Anyway, it's my pleasure. I think we're ready. It's my pleasure to introduce our first speaker, Ms. Anna Shear, and her presentation, Happiness in 2020. Please give her a warm welcome. 큰 박수 부탁드립니다. 감사합니다.
Good afternoon. My name is Anna Shear, and I'm in grade 11 at Busan Foreign School. When asked if I were interested in speaking on the topic of happiness, my initial reaction was no, thank you. However, fortunately or unfortunately, I'm still not quite sure. My mum was quick to agree on my behalf, and without consulting me, and she said, no, you're doing this. Of course, it's an absolute honor and my pleasure to be speaking here today, but I'll be honest, even though I knew I'd have to sit down and write a presentation and write a speech, I put it off for as long as possible until asked the question, what do you think of when you hear the word happiness? And then I realized exactly why I was struggling so much with this presentation and why I found it so daunting. Happiness is not a narrow topic. On the contrary, it's an incredibly overwhelming subject and incredibly complex too. Happiness is so relative. It's influenced by an array of various internal and external factors. I don't believe it's something that can really be described or defined in just a few words. Personally, I view happiness as a very internal feeling that is influenced by external factors. Happiness isn't just the joy we find in the everyday, but a deeper sense of trust and comfort that comes from within, that enables our resilience and emotional endurance. It is the underlying foundation of our well-being. Something that is more evident than ever is the extent to which external events can impact us. At the beginning of the year, I was in Sydney, where the sky was orange from the bushfires and the smoke. COVID-19 was declared an international global health emergency in January by the World Health Organization and first labeled as a pandemic in March. So many other heartbreaking things have happened this year since. The murder of George Floyd, the explosion in the port in Beirut, the plane crash in Ukraine. 2020, as we progress into the future, will, I'm sure, be notorious for being the new Annus Horribilis, a year we'd very much like to learn from to ensure it does not repeat itself again. As a result of the tumultuous events of the last 11.5 months, people's happiness has undoubtedly been impacted on an incredibly deep level. A global pandemic is not something one anticipates to experience during their lifetime, and it's undeniable that lockdown in particular has had its repercussions on people's mental health. not just because their social freedoms were limited, but because of the anxiety they felt for family members and friends too. I'm no stranger to these feelings. I've personally spent a total of 6 weeks in self-isolation this year due to COVID-19. 2 weeks in February, 2 weeks in August when I first arrived in Busan before the beginning of my junior year, and 2 weeks more recently. That's a month and a half with limited human contact, and I know other people have had it much worse and have had to endure much longer periods of self-isolation too. So the question I'm asking myself today, the question I'm asking anyone who may be watching or listening, is how can we develop an internal sense of safety and reassurance? How do we strengthen this foundation to ensure our well-being and maintain this internal equilibrium? Because even during isolation, even when I had days of feeling lonely or disconnected from my friends and family, I could still rely on this underlying sense of security. The knowledge that even if I'm overwhelmed right now, I'm still okay. The knowledge that I need to focus on the big picture and not every passing mood. Because what I believe happiness is the root feeling we can always come back to for reassurance and for comfort. One thing stands out to me in particular when I compare my experiences in isolation in August versus November, and that is a sense of community. The November isolation period was much easier to endure, to the point where I had minimum anxiety and honestly didn't even realize that 2 weeks had passed. And the difference is that in August, I hadn't yet started my junior year at my new school. I hadn't yet developed the friendships and relationships that I now maintain. During those 2 weeks, it was a period of isolation in every sense of the word. I had my mother and my sister, and we are an incredibly close family, but I missed the feeling that I was part of a larger community that could offer support and guidance, that could offer us a sense of stability and calm. I didn't have much to reassure myself with, because I did feel quite alone. When self-isolating in November, however, the 2 weeks flew by. By November, I hadn't just started at my new school, but I had developed so many valuable relationships amongst the wider school community. I'm a member of the student council. I'm an embarrassingly bad member of the volleyball team, but I still had my weekly training sessions and shared common ground with the other players. I had Model United Nations, classes with friends and teachers, and classroom environments that were supportive and generous in spirit. So when I entered the second period of isolation, at the same time as my school closed campus and made the decision to progress via virtual learning, I had daily Zooms. I had teachers email me to check in and offer encouragement. Every member of student council filmed themselves, and the videos were compiled into one long message of support for the wider school community. So when I talk about happiness as an internal state of comfort, I personally draw on these experiences of love and support to maintain it. I have a sense of inner reassurance, and when I do feel anxious or overwhelmed, I can reflect on these positive experiences. Unfortunately, due to the rising COVID cases in Busan, my school remained closed, and we recently began winter break. Assuming we can return to campus in January, it will have been 6 weeks since I've been immersed in my community. But in all honesty, I'm not particularly worried. Teachers have told us that should we need anything, we can just send an email. I have my family and my friends to message, and I spent 3 hours last week talking the ear off my best friend back in Australia. Overall, I feel secure knowing that despite the magnitude of our global situation, not one single person is truly alone. 2020 has been a difficult year for everyone. We've all been impacted by the year's wide range of occurrences. For example, I vividly remember opening my phone and seeing messages from my friends in Australia who could see the Australian wildfires from their bedroom windows. I remember obsessively Googling Meghan and Harry's exit from the royal family, and I remember walking through my school hallways and hearing people argue over the US election. And I remember the feeling of dread when I opened KakaoTalk and saw that a friend I had been in contact with tested positive, and that awful sinking feeling I had of what if. But ironically, despite all of this, 2020 has been a significant reminder of the value of happiness, community, gratitude, and support. A reminder that we thrive when we're offered support by the people around us and should strive to do the same. A reminder that even when we're struggling and facing immense uncertainty and an unpredictable future, we can draw on these feelings of and memories of comfort and validation to maintain inner reassurance, to know that actually we are okay. Thank you.
What a fantastic presentation. One more time, thank you, Anna Shear. There she goes. So let's introduce our next speaker. We have another presenter, and she will be talking about animals, the biology and neuroscience of happiness. It is my pleasure to introduce Shia Lynn Johnson. Please give her a warm round of applause. Warm welcome. 큰 박수 부탁드립니다.
I love animals. I have had many different pets in my life. Let me introduce you to a few of them. Here is my hamster, Hammy, my dog, whose actual name is Happy, and my cat, Corey. They make me happy because they are my family. According to research, over 90% of pet owners consider their pet as a family member, and I'm no different. Once invited to this conference, I began to think of why animals make me happy. What is it about animals that make me and other people happy? Hello, my name is Shia Lynn Johnson, and I'm in 6th grade at the International School of Busan. Today, I would like to share with you the biology and neuroscience of happiness based on my experiences with animals and supported by research into how animals affect human happiness. Like any kid, I like to play outside with my friends, but often my friends are too busy with homework or going to after-school academies and can't come out. However, animals don't have homework and would usually love to go outside. I sometimes take Happy to the playground to chase local street cats. I even take Corey to go climb trees, but he usually doesn't want to come down. But my point is that animals are a comfort, offer companionship, security, and play with us when lonely or bored. Research has found that companionship gives a sense of purpose and meaning, reduces loneliness, and increases socialization. When I'm upset or mad, I take Corey with me to my room and hug, pet, and talk to him. Research says that having someone to listen to, including animals, may decrease your worries or problems by being able to vocalize emotions. I feel like he understands me because he reacts to my touch and tone of voice. He moves his tail, slapping me in the face, then seems to show empathy by sitting on my chest, rubbing his head against mine, and curling up beside me as if he might understand. It comforts me to feel needed and wanted, and takes the focus away from whatever was bothering me. It was found that those who play with animals report increase in positive moods and emotion, which is certainly me. Although I'm young and positive, I still have some stresses in my life. Math problems, exams, homework, and of course, parents. Just kidding. But animals have shown to minimize stress and anxiety in kids by decreasing levels of the stress-related hormone called cortisol. This hormone is known to start the biological flight or fight stress response to prepare the body for action. So, what do I like to do if I'm feeling a bit stressed? Watch a movie, of course. What kind? A movie where a cute animal saves the day. But when my dad tells me I have to turn off the movie, I say, according to research, cute animals may increase relationship satisfaction, so I'm watching it in the name of science. If that doesn't work, I might bring out the big guns and state, results show that kids are more focused after viewing cute images, which produce positive feelings, which is actually a real research. I like this research thing. Also, I never get sick. It might be because of my awesome Korean American genes, or because I've been around animals my whole life. Research shows that having or being around animals a lot can improve your immune system and decrease the chances of getting sick. This may be because animals decrease negative moods and support daily social interactions, which boost positive chemicals in the body, increasing well-being. Speaking of chemicals, happiness is a feeling. But what exactly is a feeling? I didn't know how to explain it, but after researching, I realized the feelings I've talked about so far can be explained by biology and chemistry. Now it's getting complicated. Chemicals are released by the body when we're happy. Oxytocin is a chemical released in the body when we're bonding with someone to create feelings of trust. It is thought to help with the formation of social connections, like when petting Corey. Serotonin is a chemical thought to help calm and relax people, and dopamine is a chemical released when motivated and excited to reward the brain. For example, Corey can be super funny, goofy, and does a lot of weird stuff, which makes me laugh. The laughter releases these chemicals in my body, making me feel happy. Many people love their pets like me, but sometimes people have to leave them alone because they're busy or going on a trip. We find comfort knowing our animal is safe and healthy when we're away. That's why I started pet sitting. I take care of the animal 30 to 45 minutes a day, taking pictures and videos and sharing them with the owner through Instagram. All money is voluntary, but whatever money I make, I buy food, carriers, and other resources for the animal shelter in Gimhae that rescues abandoned dogs and cats, but doesn't euthanize them. I bring this up to show the chain of happiness. The owner's happy knowing their animal's happy. The shelter owner's happy to have resources, and the abandoned animal are happy to be walked and loved. As for me, I'm happy to make others happy. I wanted to help more people, so I went to Thailand for a week to volunteer at the Wildlife Friends Foundation Thailand, a sanctuary for sick, disabled, mistreated, and abandoned animals. I cleaned cages, made enrichments, and fed them every day together with other volunteers who are happy to make others happy. What I've learned from my experience is that happiness is certainly a choice. You just have to change your mind, your habits, and actions. This speech is not trying to convince you that you must adopt an animal to be happy, but it is certainly an option. In fact, research has shown that there may be a brain difference between pet owners and non-pet owners. Take a look at this fMRI scan. When simply viewing photographs of animals, pet owners show greater activation than non-pet owners in the areas of the brain related to compassion and empathy, as well as awareness and decision-making. Still not convinced of the power of animals' effect on humans? Other studies have shown that pet owners are less likely to suffer from depression, have lower blood pressure in stressful situations, have lower cholesterol levels, who have heart attacks survive longer than those without a pet. Over the age 65, 30% fewer doctor visits and lower medical bills. Especially dogs can help increase exercise. So, I hope my experiences, supported by research, help you understand the positive biological effects of animals on humans. Animals certainly make people happy in so many ways, for so many reasons. But I would like to leave you with this. If animals make us happy, don't you think we should help them feel happy too? Besides, we wouldn't be in this pandemic mess today if we considered animal happiness. Thank you.
Wow, what a fantastic presentation. Thank you so much to our second presenter, Shia Lynn Johnson, talking about the neuroscience of having animals. I have to agree, and they're so cute as well, right? It's my absolute pleasure to introduce our third and final phenomenal speaker of this session. She's here today to ask the question, do we have time to be happy? Please welcome Olivia Nagy Lee. 큰 박수 부탁드립니다.
안녕하세요.
Good afternoon.
My name is Olivia Nagy Lee. I go to a regular middle school here in Busan. At school, I am known as Lee So-mi, which is my Korean name. Today's presentation title is Do We Have Time to Be Happy? I've been asked to speak here about happiness, and as a middle school student about to go to high school, I've decided to speak for Korean students. I'm not an expert in happiness, but I'm going to do my best in explaining it from our view. The first thing I did was look up the definition of happiness. The Merriam-Webster mentions well-being, contentment, joy, and a pleasurable or satisfying experience. So I wanted to know how my friends feel about happiness. I made a survey and put it on social media. I asked them their age and 4 questions about happiness. There were 32 girls and 18 boys who answered my survey. The first thing I asked them was, when are you happy? A lot of the students answered, when I'm with my friends, when I talk with my friends, when I'm spending time with someone I like, and a lot of them answered when I'm resting, when I'm watching TV, when I'm peaceful, and other things about when I'm resting. And there were others just saying, when I finish academy early and go home, when I don't go to academy, when I listen to songs that I like, when I do things that I want to do, when I do my hobby, and when I eat, of course. So I asked myself, what makes me happy? And my answer was art. I like colors, I like design, I like drawing in my own style. I've always loved art in one form or another. I was exposed to art in all forms from an early age, and my dream is to become an art teacher. Art allows us to relax and express ourselves. I'm content when I'm drawing or painting. It also lets us escape the craziness of life. It puts us in a state of well-being. I have been attending an art academy for 6 years, and I want to study it in university. I love drawing, and that is what makes me happy. It is pleasurable and satisfying. The problem with this is that I don't have a lot of time to draw what I want to, because I have to create a portfolio that will be recognized by Korean universities. So, do I have time to be happy? This leads on nicely to the next question. What could make you happier? I received a few quite sad answers. Most of them said they don't know. But I also got an answer saying, giving up what I want to do. We are always told that we should do what we want to do, but this student believed that they had to change their dreams in order to be happy, because they were told that they couldn't attain their real goal. I don't think that people should tell other people that to give up on what they want to do. There were a lot of answers saying getting more rest or sleep, changing the Korean education system,
and things like that. Personally, I need 7 hours of sleep every night, but if I have a mountain of homework and I can't get the sleep, and if I don't get the sleep, it impacts my next day and causes me stress. However, if I don't do my homework, I also get very stressed. In this situation, I am not in a state of well-being. Time to sleep and relax is really important. As an artist, I have a problem with the Korean education system. This also applies to anyone with any kind of artistic ability. Designers, art musicians, dancers, in simple terms. Because it's quite complicated, there are 2 ways in which to enter Korean universities. One is Sushi. This system takes into account your results at school and also any extracurricular activities such as art contests. The second is the Jeongsi system, which is where you take the one-day dreaded test that I'm sure you've heard about, where airplanes are grounded and police are ready to escort you to the test center. It is such a big deal. Your university admittance depends on this one test on one day. The Sushi system is being gradually removed university by university, which means that to enter a good university to study art, not only do you have to be very good at art, but you also need to be brilliant academically. It doesn't seem fair, does it? And it doesn't give you a lot of time for happiness unless studying like crazy brings you happiness. Other answers to the question was, of course, the end of Corona and breathing without a mask on, having better self-care, working on my confidence, and quitting after-school academies. For question 3, I asked how many hours the student went to academies for per week. 34% said they attended academies over 15 hours a week. So that is after school and homework. Only 8 kids said they don't go to academies. In my case, I spend 24 hours a week at academies. Now this might be because I'm awful at math, but this is one whole day of my life every week and I'm doing extra study out of school. And this is quite common. The academies I attend are really friendly, but it is still a lot. Let me tell you a little about academies. There are places where students go to study pretty much anything. They are for sports, music, and art. And then there are the academic academies. In the city of Busan, we nearly have 5,000, and Seoul has almost 3 times that amount. So that is big business. The average age of children starting academies is 4.7 years old, which is in Korean age, so about 3 years old. Why are they needed when we have schools? Surely we spend enough time at school to learn what we need, other countries seem to manage. The most shocking answer I received to what could make you happier was just one word. Death. Only 50 students responded and I still got this answer. No one should be in a position where they feel like the only release from unhappiness is death, especially at such a young age. I don't want my friends or anyone to feel like that, and taking time to concentrate on happy things instead of worrying about the future must help, right? Korea has the highest suicide rates within the OECD, and the biggest cause of death for students has been suicide for the last 12 years. This is something that needs tackling. Nothing about being number one on this list shouts happiness or well-being. The final question I asked was, what would you rate your happiness out of 1 to 10? 1 being not happy and 10 being very happy. There was only 1 student out of 50 who said 10. There were 8 students who said under 4. Aren't we all supposed to be a 10? Out of 50 students, only 1 said they were very happy. The students surveyed said they were very happy spending time with friends and family. They were happy spending time. They were happy when peaceful. They were happy when resting. All of these things require time. Let's reduce expectations of brilliance and allow us to spread our wings. Give us time away from a desk and away from academic stresses. Let us develop better self-care and work on our confidence. Is that what we need? I think that instead of telling students to spend all their time studying, how about giving them some time to be happy? As I said, do we have time to be happy going through the same old routine of home, school, academy, home? I think before we talk about happiness, we should ask ourselves, did I give them time to be happy? Thank you.
Wow, that rounds off our youth presentations. Thank you one more time for all 3 speakers. Really, really phenomenal and insightful presentations from 3 remarkable young women. It's now time for us to take a short break. We will return to you with our happiness talk show after an online surprise event. We'll see you soon.
대한민국 대표 행복 특화 컨벤션 행복 인사이트. 행운을 주는 도시 부산에서 7개 행운의 다리가 불을 밝히고 온라인으로 함께 행복의 촛불을 켜는 행복 점등식. 세계적 연사들의 행복 강연으로 더불어 함께 대한민국의 행복을 응원합니다. 12월 22일부터 23일까지 온라인 생중계되는 행복 인사이트에 여러분의 많은 참여 바랍니다.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us here this afternoon. We have moved on to the next part of our youth speaker session. This is our happiness talk show with the speakers that we just featured. Please give them a warm round of applause. Good afternoon, ladies. Hello. How do you feel now? Relaxed? Yeah, they've got nothing, they're silenced, they've got nothing to say. Congratulations, first of all, on your presentations. It was a fantastic, fantastic session, and I'm sure everyone would agree with me that you had some incredible insights, and it was a pleasure to listen to you all. I think the young generation, we're in safe hands. We're in safe hands, definitely. So if our viewers at home have any questions that they would like to ask, please do put them into the live stream. We do already have a lot of questions for our speakers today. So, ladies, I will ask you to just keep your mics on you and speak whenever you feel the need to, okay? Don't be shy. The presentation's over. Let's take a deep breath. There we go. All right, so let me move to my first question. I think what I'm going to do is I'll go between each of our speakers, and we've got a few questions about your presentation and then some other questions as well. So let me move to Olivia. I really loved your presentation. How do you feel?
Hot.
Hot? Yes, it is quite hot over here, absolutely. So you talked a lot about almost unhappiness. We don't have time to be happy. And I was going to ask you, very interesting, what kind of changes to the education system do you think should happen so that young people are able to achieve their dreams and goals without compromising their well-being?
Like, the Korean education system is like, as I said earlier, there's the Jeongsi and Sushi system. I don't think that's good. I hope there's more of the Sushi system coming in too. And in high school, you're like, by the percentage, you're rated a number. And like, then you need to compete with your friends. And I don't think that's very good socially or like just for friendship either. And also, I don't exactly like hagwons being obvious. Like I wish it was more a choice than like if you say you don't go to academies, they would be like, what? And I think that should be just okay to be like that.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your answer. That's definitely something I've heard a lot of young people saying. So it's a very interesting topic indeed. I'm going to move on to Shia. Shia, I thought your presentation was fantastic. I loved your jokes in there, especially about your parents causing you stress. I didn't realize that was a joke. I thought that was serious. But I'm sure parents are in the audience, so we have to be kind. We have to be kind. But you talked about animals and how they can make us happy. So what do you think about animals, for example, in an educational setting? For example, do you think we should bring animals to school? And how do you think that would impact learning?
Thank you. That's a very good question. There are some advantages for having an animal at school. One of them could be collaboration, working together to help the animal, which may lead to friendship and trust. Another one could be the animal can help you socially, and because if a kid that is having trouble making friends, then the animal could help them, which will decrease anxiety. Another one could be stress. The animal could, like I said in my presentation, the animal could decrease cortisol and then increase like positive moods. But there are some concerns for having pets at school. One could be arguing over like how to take care of the pet and who take care of the pet. Another one could be allergies and biting, because it won't be a really good experience for that kid. Another one could be distracting the classes, because it'll take the focus away from the actual learning. So those are a few of the advantages and disadvantages of having animal at the school related to happiness.
Thank you so much. A very thorough answer. And I think it would be a fantastic idea because, of course, animals do help us feel a little bit more relaxed and feel, get our stresses out. But yeah, again, it'd be a free-for-all in my class at school anyway. That would be chaos. Okay, thank you so much so far. Anna, I'm going to move to you. Now, your presentation, I think your experience this year has been absolutely phenomenal. You've had 2 quarantines. You've been in isolation away from people for 6 weeks total, so that's without outside contact, which must have been a very stressful time, I imagine. But I would love to know, if you found yourself back in quarantine, what would you do differently this time?
That's an interesting question. I think definitely I can see reflecting back on previous experiences, I noticed that the second time I put more of an emphasis on social interactions and maintaining friendships and relationships within the wider community. And so if I were to find myself back in quarantine again, I would not only look out for my own social interactions, but I would look out for the social well-being of friends and family too.
That's a really good answer. And I think now you've done it already. Going into it again, you'd be more prepared for another instance, just in case that happens. I hope it doesn't happen. Just let me tell you, I hope it doesn't happen. But in case it does, you'd be more prepared. I'm going to move back to Olivia. Olivia, so going back to the education system, what kind of, in your experience, what kind of support or services are actually available to students like yourself who maybe are feeling a bit stressed and need some help in terms of keeping their well-being at a good level or keeping them healthy? What is available to help students?
Well, at each school, there's like this center called the We class. So you're supposed to go there and talk with the teacher about what you're stressed about. And so, I mean, it is good that they have a thing like that, but it's actually not private. It's just like they would tell your parents or tell your homeroom teacher. So that's why people don't really go there. And there are other places that you could go to, like outside of school, but being stressed about like academic stuff in Korea, it's quite normalized. That's why people think it's like normal to be stressed and things like that. That's why you don't exactly get help until it's too late. So, yeah.
Which obviously is no help whatsoever. It's too late. There's no going back, I guess. It's really interesting that you say that because, especially in your presentation, you talked about the OECD suicide rates, etc. And I think hopefully we're going to see the younger generations coming up and making bigger strides and bigger changes in terms of how important mental health is. And I think you can, women like you can spearhead these kind of initiatives. And I think it's really important what you're talking about today. Thank you so much. I'd like to move on to Shia again. Shia, you are 11 years old, right?
Yes.
Incredible presentation. I was not doing what you're doing when I was 11 years old, guaranteed. But I'd love to know your insight on what the older generations can learn from the younger generations.
Thank you. That's a very interesting question. One thing that the older generations can learn from younger generations is like connecting to people through social media and technology, like connecting with people who have the same interests as you, or connecting with the people who, like friends from the past, like high school friends and colleagues. Another thing that they can learn is fresh ideas, like creativity and being like adventurous. And this also applies to trying new things and like being curious to solve problems. Also, younger generations can learn from older generations, like responsibility, because when you get older, you'll have a family and a job. And also, younger generations can learn from older generations, like face-to-face communication, like body language, facial expressions, and tone of voice. And they can also learn like life lessons, sort of, like, because they have more experience.
Thank you so much. And it's such an important point. You talk about facial expressions. In these days, we don't see each other's faces, so it's very difficult to have that sense of connection and communication. Very important. I'm going to move to Anna, and then we'll wrap up this section because we're running out of time. Time flies, absolutely. So I'm going to ask Anna. Anna, now, given your experience with quarantine, with the bushfires, and everything you discussed in your presentation, what advice would you give to someone who's struggling? Now, you mentioned that you, you mentioned that you had this wonderful community around you, these really strong relationships. So what if someone doesn't have that same community? What advice would you give to them in terms of moving forward, cultivating happiness? What would be your advice?
That's an interesting question, because I don't believe that in this day and age anyone is really off the grid. I think there is always the potential to connect with people, whether that's through social media and the internet or going out into the neighborhood. And even though someone might not have a direct community or a school or a workplace that they can directly connect with, what we're going through right now is not limited to just one person. There are millions of people across the globe going through what we're going through isolation, going through quarantine. And I think that if you can find a way to reach out to those people and in some way form a connection, it's a really valuable reminder that we're not alone. And because everything is so technological, there are outlets on the internet, there are blogs, there are articles being written, there are videos being made, where I'm sure you can find someone to connect with.
Thank you so much. Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. You're so articulate. I want to speak that way too. I'm going to stay with you, Anna. I'm going to ask you the final question of today. What are your hopes? What are your wishes for 2021 and moving into the new year?
Well, my presentation had an emphasis on social connections. And I think because of the uncertainty we face as we move into the future, I think social connections are something that we need to place an emphasis on more than ever. I think we need to continue to strengthen the bonds and relationships we have with the people around us to ensure not only our happiness, but the happiness of other people. And hopefully these connections can extend into wider communities. Because in today's day and age, there's a lot of conflict, there's a lot of tension, there's a lot of uncertainty. But if we can emphasize these connections, then we can create this fundamental happiness and sense of unity between people.
Thank you so much for your answer. And Shia, I'll ask the same question to you. What are your hopes for 2021 and the new year?
Like Anna, since COVID started, we don't have time to connect with people as much. So my goal is to like go outside of school and connect with my friends without any restrictions, and it'll be really nice to do that.
Yeah, some face-to-face time that isn't mask-to-mask time,
Yeah.
right? And Olivia, same question to you. Hopes for 2021 and the new year?
Well, my hopes are just not, I hope 2021 is just not like 2020.
Yes, that's a good hope.
But I also want to make good memories, like with my friends that are not online, and like having good, things to do with my friends that wouldn't be on Zoom. So yeah, I just hope I get to spend more time with people that I like.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what it's all about. It's from isolation to connection. And from the words of these remarkable young women, I think it's very clear that the future is in good hands in terms of how our happiness is likely to grow. Ladies, I just want to say personally, it's been an absolute pleasure working with you. Thank you so much for joining us for Happiness Insight 2020. Please, everyone, give a very warm round of applause to our student speakers for today. 큰 박수 부탁드립니다. You can wave to our viewers at home. Hi, everyone. Hi. All right. It's an absolute pleasure to have these young women here talking about what happiness is and perhaps what happiness isn't. And it's time for our next session. A person who continually strives to improve the happiness of people all around the world. It's time for some meditation through a mindfulness meditation workshop. Now, the CEO of Mindfulness Korea and global leader of the Google-born Mindfulness Leadership Project, Ashton H.S. Cho, is here with us today. A good friend of mine, a gentleman and a scholar. Please put your hands together for Ashton Cho. 큰 박수 부탁드립니다.
And very inspiring talks and chat. Really enjoyed that. 로라 감사드리고요. 제가 50분 동안 진행.
I have 50 minutes. The session is the reconnecting through mindfulness, reconnecting with ourselves and reconnecting with others. To become happy, there are many factors for happiness. As you can see, there are 3 factors: health, economic activities, and especially in Korea, we work a lot, and social activity as well, meeting people, easing our stress. As you all know, since the COVID-19, the things that we know of have been isolated. I don't have to dive deeper into this, but rising unemployment and remote working. And if you are laid off, then they are working on long-term plans about employment to make ends meet. And also social activities have changed a lot. Social distancing has caused us to isolate ourselves from friends, and we don't go to the gyms. Lots of stressful events these days. And also the health. I don't think to talk much about our health, the importance of our health. The very fundamentals that we know of, when they are isolated, we are stressed. We are stressed in our hearts. This is Corona Blue. We may develop depression because of coronavirus. A statistic says there are many negative emotions. It's a survey from a website, Albamon. The letharginess and frustration, the emotions that people are feeling. And in the National Mental Health Survey, 48% of adults feel depression, feel anxiety, and 45% feel depression. And I asked this question to my online friends about their recent emotions. Most of them felt letharginess, helplessness, and depression as well. In March, when COVID-19 broke out, the K-quarantine, so-called K-quarantine, was very successful. So Korea gained recognition from around the world for our quarantine measures. My friends in Europe and the US praised us and thought that Korea will do a very good job. So I wasn't very concerned back then. I had many programs, but I just thought that they will end soon. So I had hope because they will be just short-lived, because we had emergency relief benefits, but it's surging again now, and this will be here to stay for quite a long time, and it will eventually be part of our everyday life. This graph shows graph from Korea Anti-Suicide Association, the emotional response after someone committed suicide. The Korean people were very unified, and this graph shows that we are going through one of the most difficult emotional times. So now we have many guests joining us online. It's 2020 nears to the end. I ask you to write 1 or 2 or 3 words about your status. Summarize your status in 1 or 3 words. Your concerns, your health, your economy, your social activities. So write down 1 or 2, 3 words about yourself, what emotions you have. So please take a short minute and write them down. Is there any monitor that I can check? So, while I receive your answers, let me wait. But in my case, I chose the words anxiety and worries. And I'm waiting for your answers to come in. I look forward to what answers you would be writing down.
줌에 계신 분들은 지금
If you are joining us via Zoom, you must be seeing what others are writing down. So let us check what others are choosing. Yes, we have lots of answers. Some chose discomfort, fear, hopelessness, tired, frustration, uncertainty about when it will end, and voidness, uncertainty when it will end, tired. Very good. We had a very good presentation just before. I think I chose a very appropriate topic. But let us watch this short video clip before we move on. Let's take a deep breath 3 times. Inhale through your nose. Exhale. Just feel that you are breathing. The information and ideas, forget about them. Just realize that you are breathing. Deeply inhale and exhale. Realize that you have been having bad and negative ideas about COVID. Now once more, take a deep breath. Exhale, and the voidness, tiredness, waiting, uncertainty, depression, just lay them down. The discomfort. This is the question. How can mindfulness heal the isolation? Here, my answer here is, for the structural conditions, I cannot answer if you have good health and if you have good social activities, I cannot do that, but isolation and how we can realize isolation through mindfulness, and if we connect them, then we can find recovery in heart and happiness. And if you feel full in heart, then we can connect with each other. We can connect with each other. Then we can recover and be healed together. Our heart, if every single of our heart are filled and connected, what will happen? Then the COVID-19 and the condition, we cannot change the conditions, but we can help with each other, coexist with each other, and support each other. If we form a network for that, then I believe that's collective resilience. As one speaker pointed out, the importance of community. Mindfulness is about the resilience, well-being, and happiness in our heart, and the community is. There are many researches about that, the importance of communities. I cannot tell you to experience all of them in a short time, but we can experience these two things: connection with myself and connection with other people. If we can understand even a little, I hope we will have a very good time to understand and experience this. I said that mindfulness achieves connection. Then what is mindfulness after all? The definition, there are so many definitions. Brain definition and lots of different definitions about mindfulness, but there are two parts. First is, you must be familiar with this. First is the realization about the moment, my recognition, my ideas, and my worries about the future and regret about the past. Isolate myself and focus on the present day. My heart, my difficulties, and others' difficulties. We can connect with them. Mindfulness definition, textbook definition is, as much there are second part about the mindfulness, that's warmth. The things that I can realize, recognize. We must be warm about the things. First is realize about the present, and second is to greet them with warmth. Mindfulness helps during the COVID-19 especially, as these are the reports about that in the foreign press, LA Times, Guardian. Do you know Vogue? Vogue means fashion. So it's like a fashion during the COVID-19. It's not just a Vogue, but there are lots of medical research, and many medical journals published results and articles about mindfulness. This is Harvard Medical Review and Yale Medical School. Especially the happiness inside. I believe this has a lot to do with this conference. This is the Positive Psychology 2020 report by Harvard Medical School. This paper looks into the connection between the happiness and mindfulness and inner power. You don't have to read them entirely, but mindfulness is directly related to happiness and also the resilience. It means mindfulness could be the power for us to overcome the coronavirus. Now, the isolated. From isolation, how we can move to connection through mindfulness. How can we must know how we can respond to corona, and we have to realize that there are other options. First, if we feel anxiety, we think very fast, like lots of 60,000 thoughts every day. That translates into 0.8 thoughts per second. But 95 of them are the same as those we had the previous day, and 90 of them are negative, like anxiety, void, because the brain should solve them. The brain should address them. And 85% of our worries actually don't happen. But we tend to think fast when we are faced with difficulties, and our body begins to feel that. It might not be clear on the monitor, but anxiety, the second from top, and anxiety. When we feel negative things, then our brain, neck, chest, and stomach feel the negative emotions, because the brain has the most neuron network. So if you have negative emotions, then our body begins to respond. Then what happens? We have to avoid them because it's hard for us. Then we automatically, the autonomous neural system begins to activate. This works kind of like alarm system. When something very bad happens, cortisol is released. Our muscles contract and our heart begins to pound, and our body begins to get prepared, and our brain actually activates for survival. So it shifts to survival instinction. Our reasonable area is shut down. This is confirmed by scientific research. Then, how can we respond to COVID? As one of the Gen Z said, fight-flight mechanism. The rigidity, it responds as rigidity fight, because our brain struggles to find answers to COVID, to meet friends, to have beers. But this, after all, has limitations too. And second is escape. The consumption of alcohol rose everywhere, and Netflix watching hours also increased. So we all have the tendency we would like to escape. And finally is competition. Many of you are blaming yourselves, but this is a very natural response. It is a very natural mechanism, so don't blame yourself. That's what we call reptile brain. But we also have the instinction to respond differently. We have an option for that. Think about your loved ones. Think about the people that you love, like your pet, or your parents. If you are parents, your kids, your nephew, niece. If that person has a fever like 38 degrees Celsius, but now a physician confirms that the kid doesn't have a corona. But how about kids or pets? They don't know if we don't know why they have fever. Then what should you do? Do you watch Netflix? Do you drink alcohol? We will be collapsed emotionally. No. We know how to respond automatically, instantly, even if you are an animal. We know that it's hard. We feel we are hurt. and we hug them. There's no solution, but we can give them the painkiller and tell them you'll be fine, and hold their hands. If you have loved ones, we know what will happen to them instantly. This is the mammal's brain. This is a very different brain that we use, as the previous speaker pointed out about how we respond when we have kids, pets at home. If we connected with them emotionally, like parents loving their kids, and when our brain are activated, this part of brain was evolved later in our brain. According to a research report, if we use that part of the brain, we tend to come forward to help others, and we actively want to care their negative feelings, and we try to help them to address the negative feelings. Now let's return to ourselves who are having difficulties due to the COVID. Letharginess, anxiety, isolation. Is it reptile or mammal? What brain do you use most often, do you think, to ask for ourselves? This one. This one plus. We judge, we evaluate, but don't do that. What a stupid person I am. I should have studied more, I should have earned more certificates. Don't blame yourselves. Don't give yourself hard times. If you meet isolated hearts, we are making them giving them more difficulties to them. But we have to take this path, and we know how to get there. So, how can we move from the reptile's brain to mammal's brain and connect with our hearts? That's the one part of the mindfulness. The realization about your current status, how we can understand others who are aching, like pets having pains. We first realize
힘들구나.
You feel fragile and you're having difficulties. You have to empathize with your friends over a drink. You're having a difficult times, and well, I understand how difficult you are and things like that. And then we give some hurtful feelings. So you have to be aware of what others are going through. It's not like an analysis. You don't have to say why did it happen, but rather than doing that, you can ask where does it hurt, and let's see. So my negative emotions are vented out, and you have to look at yourself how this is vented out. But even if there is no answer to that, like a mother's hands, you can pat yourself, it's going to be fine. I am here, right? But if we are going through some difficult times, we can't do that actually that much. So the first step is to, like if we looked at that deer, we have to stop and take a deep breath. So respiration is very important. You have to stop and move away from the things that make you difficult, and then you stabilize your respiration, and you have more oxygen in your brain. Then you can come forward to yourself in a warmer way. It's not like empathizing yourself who's going through some difficulties. You can separate yourself, detach yourself from the this difficult self by doing this deep breathing. Well, it could be very difficult. So we are going to have some exercise now. Maybe you'll be sitting on a chair now. So let's stand up instead of just sitting. So we have some you're going to distance yourselves from the screen. You put the screen a little bit further away from you and sit down again. So you establish you establish the intention that you are going to sit down to meet inner self. So the negative feelings and emotions, that we are going to connect yourself with those in negative emotions again, and be aware of such negative feelings, and treat yourself in a warm way. Well, it cannot. Maybe it's going to take more exercises for you to be able to do that, but let's just do it. So look at yourself, and this is blues, and you're going to meet this blues, COVID blues. So feel the feet that are touching the ground if you're sitting on a chair. And if you're sitting on the ground, please feel your bottoms touching the ground. And you have to put your head straight up and close your eyes slowly. If you close your eyes, a lot of thoughts come to you. So you may wonder if this is meditation. Well, it's okay. It's only natural. Then remind yourself of the recent negative emotions. Well, if you cannot really think of that easily, you just think of the recent moments. So, the recent situation, we have more confirmed cases, and we are beefing up the social distancing levels, and our economic activities have changed a lot. So when will it end? When do we have vaccines? I really want to go traveling. I feel so suffocated. How about my grandparents? Are they okay? So you have lots of anxieties and worries and concerns. Be courageous and jump into these negative emotions with courage. Yes, I feel depressed and I'm going through some difficult time. So your body feel discomfort now. Like from your chest or the stomach, it may feel happy, or that we are going to stop here. We are going to breathe wisely. We are going to take 3 deep breaths. You inhale through your nose deeply, stop, 2, 3, and exhale. Once again, inhale through your nose and exhale slowly, and let out your negative feelings and senses and emotions. And last one, take a deep breath and exhale everything. Then let's go back to our natural breathing. I am back to the current moment, the present moment. Through breathing, I found very little, a little comfort in my mind, and I feel a bit more clear now. Then, the negative emotions that I had, well, some of them are still inside our body, right? As you're aware of those negative emotions, let's get to know them in a more warm way. Put a hand on the chest, like you pet a small animal or a child and put the other hand on the stomach, you can feel your body that is breathing gently.
그리고 내 손 아래
Then underneath your palm, the remains of the isolated feelings are still there. Please get to know these remains of these isolated feelings in a more warm way. The fragility in your chest or in your mind. What is the range? Is it covering the entire chest of yours? If your chest feels heavy, how heavy is that? Is it like a paper on your chest, or is it heavier? If it has volume, how about that? And the same is true for your stomach. If you have tension, your stomach can feel that. Your hand is patting these painful emotions, and as soon as your hands are on those feelings in your bodies, you start to feel differently. You recover your respiration. You try to feel the senses of your palms. It may feel awkward, but you have to give a warm word to yourself. You may whisper, or if you're alone, you can speak it out, call out your name. Well, you went through some difficult times. You felt fragile. You were sad. But it's okay. I am here with you. It's going to be okay. Everything's going to be fine. Well, you may feel awkward from what you're doing, but you can just feel that again and give these gentle feelings to yourself with the sense of your palm. Concentrate on these feelings. So as you exhale, you try to feel that the feelings that your palms have will expand. This warmth is really good for our health. It's like sunshine or the rain and the drought. You just stay with these senses. And then put down your hands comfortably. You have your eyes closed, but you try to put your eyesight farther away. Do not forget these senses, and if you're ready, slowly open your eyes and come back to this moment. Well done. How was that? Well, I can't see the messages. I'll get some comments if I can. Otherwise, I'll move on. As I can see from Zoom, I feel your facial expressions are more relaxed. Or some of you are feeling awkward. Well, you did a good job. I'll move on to the next part of my presentation, connecting with others. And after connecting with yourself, this becomes your resources. So scientifically, brain does this and that, but just remember what you just felt, and with this, you can deliver this kind of feelings to others to build connection. In order to do that, we can write down the name of a person that you think of on a paper, like the person that you are really worried about, like it could be your grandparents. You wonder how they are holding up, or if there's anyone who you are really sorry about, or anyone who you are really grateful to, and or someone who really miss. Well, it doesn't. This people shouldn't be the ones with extreme range of emotions, but maybe if you put that on a scale of 10, maybe the people with 6. You just choose just one person around you. Or if you cannot really think of someone, you can think of someone who's not here, or you can think of the animal you like, or your god, or anyone from the fictions. Write down the name of the person that you are thinking of now. If you're done, so please show your thumbs if you're ready. You're still thinking. Some of you are still thinking. Write down the name of just one person. Without explaining any theory, we will jump into the exercise right away. So the warm heart you just felt, if you didn't feel that warm heart, just think of the warm sound. Well, because of that, even if it could be very little, you could feel the change, right? So with this change, or what you can send this warmth to the person whose name you wrote down on the paper. You may wonder what you are doing, but you just you can do as I'm telling you. Then we will do the meditation of connection. We can sit down on a chair again. Straighten up your back. And you can connect your inner self and believe and establish your intention that you want to deliver some warmth to the person that you're worried about or love. When you're ready, close your eyes slowly. So imagine the person whose name you wrote down is in front of you. That person's facial expression, the warmth of that person, or the posture of this person. If you keep focusing, you may not you may not see that person sharply. It doesn't matter. This person doesn't have to be seen vividly. You can just feel it. It's okay if you just feel that that person is in front of you. It's okay. The one you love, the one you wish good luck to, or if the one you are concerned about, that person is in front of you. Think of a few things about this person. With the breakout of COVID-19, you're worried about this person, and this person may feel anxious or concerned or worried, like me. This person is warm and okay, but COVID has affected our social activities and economic activities in a negative way, so you feel suffocated and you feel there's no hope, like me. Well, this person is hoping that everything, these things will go away soon and we go back to our normal happy life. Like myself. Deliver your warm heart that's deep inside yourself to the person in front of you. You can repeat after me, or with or without saying, speaking out. Let me begin. I'm worried about you, and I hope you are well physically and mentally, even with the COVID-19. I really wish you good luck and health. I really hope that you stay healthy. COVID-19 magnified uncertainties and anxieties. I hope you can find peace in your mind. I hope that you are peaceful. You can find peace of mind. I wish you happiness. I truly wish that you are happy. You see the person's facial expression changes after hearing this message. And put your hand on the chest.
This feeling, being connected with myself and someone else's, the sources of energy lies here. How about this? Now, let's try something else. Now with your left hand, everyone joining us on YouTube, we have our own difficulties. Let's wish all the participants good luck and connection. We are together despite our beach days. Isn't it beautiful? Even if we are not together physically, but we are together. I may not know them well, but I hope I can share my warmth with them. Right now, everyone here are navigating these difficult times, and I hope that we can find wisdom and courage. Wisdom and courage. I hope everyone finds courage and wisdom. Everyone joining us via online, I hope everyone are happy in body and mind. I sincerely hope. I sincerely hope that once this difficult time is over, and meet each other in person and share happiness. Everyone who are here with us, who close their eyes, and everyone who put their hands on their hearts, I do hope that they are happy. And the rest of your hand, put your hand on the other hand. It may look awkward, but that's the power of connection. Let us do one last thing. Don't miss yourself before the monitor, before your smartphone. You are placing your both arms on your heart. It may look awkward, but that's a very good thing. Taking time and meet our hearts and send our hearts to others and sharing our emotions with others. We are doing that. To myself, let's give a warm words to myself, to my heart through your both arms. Now you may speak these words. Let's call someone's name. Yes. My friend, I hope you are healthy. I wish you a good health. I hope that you are peaceful in your heart as well. I wish you a peace of heart. I hope that you are happy. I sincerely want you to be happy. From your heart, what emotion do you have? What emotion do you have? Don't try to understand, just feel. That's the truth. Press a little harder your both arms to your heart, like as if you are hugging your loved one. This good heart, this good energy, keep that energy deep in your heart, and lower your both arms to your laps. This is one last question. Find out the words that comes up to your mind. When you open your eyes, if you have one person to be grateful, to say thank you to you, or say I love you, or I'm sorry, or forgive me, just think about one person to say any of these words to. During today, if there's one person to say warm words to, good. Slowly open your eyes and return. Before we forget, write it down. on a paper. It's a promise with yourself. Do you say that to that person? Thank you, I love you, I'm sorry, forgive me. That's it. Finally, the importance of connection. 5 years ago, I went to Han River and having a beer with one of my friends. A lady jumped into the river in her 20s, not from the river, but she ran into the river from the bank. So I dived too with a life vest, but others were doing nothing and said, "Is it only you that's having difficulty?" So one person took her out and slapped her in her face and told shot to her, "We all have difficulties, not just you." The speaker shared with us a very important statistics, the suicide rate of Korea. We have the highest suicide rate. Another statistics, a very sad figure. Out of the 44 OECD countries, community, we have the lowest index when it comes to community. 19% of people don't have place to go when they feel stressed or depressed. I believe Corona has revealed this. Not that this happened because of COVID-19. Who will be with us when we don't have anyone to be with us? We are most vulnerable to Corona are women. Actually, 40% of suicide rate has increased among women. So let me conclude here. There are 3 things to remember for us. Isolated. Let's meet your heart. Isolated heart. Pause. Take a pause and realize and know that our heart also has difficulties. And let's connect. It's not just you who have difficulties. We all have difficulties. Now that we have experience, we know how to do. Let's connect with just one person. Finally, I am the vaccine. The policies. We don't have to wait for the vaccine to become available. Take a pause and help yourself. And if we can connect with a single person, then we can overcome this together. The person you wrote down on the paper, connect them with that person. Connect it with me and connect it together. Thank you for joining me today. Thank you.
Wow, ladies and gentlemen, to finish off this session, one more time, please put your hands together for our wonderful Ashton Cho. 큰 박수 부탁드립니다. So that does bring us to the end of this session and sadly to the end of Happiness Insight 2020. Of course, with the unprecedented events of 2020, the coronavirus, our brothers and sisters from all around the world have been greatly impacted, including, of course, in Korea, and many people are having a very difficult time in these difficult days. So we hope that Happiness Insight, which celebrates its 4th anniversary this year, has given a light of hope and happiness to all those who have participated, and also that light will spread out and connect to all of the world. I hope to see you all here back next year in a very hopeful year of 2021. And of course, we couldn't do it without the help of our fantastic supporters who, without their help, this whole Happiness Insight, this wonderful lighting ceremony, the speakers, it would never have been able to happen. So I would just like to give a brief mention to Busan-Gwangyok-si, Busan 시설 공
Busan Metropolitan City, Busan Infrastructure Corporation, Busan Regional SMEs and Startups Office, K-Water, Ihungyeong Bakery, Star Motor, and Golden Blue.
So much for all your help. Thank you to our speakers, to all of the participants from all around the world, and of course to you at home for listening and joining us here. That brings us to the end of Happiness Insight 2020. I've been your host for this session, Laura McCluckey, and I'm so excited to see you next year. Take care. Bye-bye.